welcome to The Photography Guy. I'm your host, The Photography Guy. Let's get started here with another great photo show. Hey, good morning. Welcome back once again to The Photography Guy. This is episode number 62 for Sunday, November the 9th, 2014. I'm your host, Jack. Thanks for joining me here this morning to learn more about your digital cameras and making great photographs. Please check out my website at thephotographyguy.net where you can comment on these shows and let me know how I'm doing and give me a little bit of feedback. If you're listening to the audio podcast, you may also want to check out the YouTube video of this show, and you can be found at 42, the number 4, the number 2, Technoman, 42 Technoman. Please visit my learning site. You know, if you want to learn more about photography, and we all do, right? We all want to get the best photographs that we can get, the best pictures, be the best creative makers that we can be. You want to check that out at jtclearning.com. Many of you have. Many of you in there, you'll see that many people have already signed up for the Photoshop Elements 12 course. And you'll find a ton of information there and just a lot of learning. So sign up today at jtclearning.com. If you're not on our Facebook group, I urge you to get over there and join. Man, I tell you what, we've had a burst of folks joining the Facebook group, and I can't be more humbled. I started that, and I call that our little corner of the web. Just our little corner to talk about photography and photographs, cameras, lenses. You know, pay it forward. Share information. It's about stuff you know, and just show us some of your work. We'd love to see people's work. And don't worry, nobody really criticizes any work out there. So today I thought we'll get right into the show. And today I thought we have so many new viewers out there and a lot of new listeners to this podcast each week that we're going to retouch on some of the subjects that we may have already touched on. But, it's always good to get a refresher. It never hurts to have a refresher on these courses. Today I want to show you how to control ambient light with your camera. Now, for so many years, we have heard about the golden hour. Now, if you've never heard about the golden hour before, this might be a whole new concept to you. The golden hour was always told to us to be 1 hour before sunrise and 1 hour before sunset. But really, you can take pictures anytime you want just by learning how to control our cameras. We buy these expensive cameras all the time. They have these great gadgets on it, these great buttons and all these settings, and everybody seems to want to put it in automatic and shoot away, start taking their pictures. But folks, today we're going to be going over full manual. Now, if that scares you off a little bit, don't let it. Don't say, Jack, full manual just, it scares the heck out of me. I can't shoot manual. You can. With a few lessons, a little bit of encouragement, and, a little bit of practice, you also can be shooting in full manual. Now, do you need to shoot everything in full manual? Absolutely, positively not. When I was on vacation recently, I shot either in shutter priority mode, and I also shot in aperture priority mode. If you've seen some of the pictures from my vacation I went on, you'll notice that I took some pictures of the ocean as the waves were coming in. And I slowed those waves down by using a very slow shutter speed. Now, you can do this in manual. You can do, light readings and everything, but it is so much quicker to set the slow shutter speed. And being it was in the evening, set your camera up on a tripod or a monopod and allow the camera to do all the other great things for you. So people say, Jack, well, this is like automatic mode. No, it's not. Because you're controlling an aspect of that camera that, you're the creative eye. You're the person making this creative shot. So you're the one that is actually taking this creative picture. And you are telling the camera, I want a very slow shutter speed, but allow the camera to do its proper adjustments for exposure. So why today? Why would we be on manual today? Well, let me tell you a little bit. Let's back up a little bit here. First, I'm going to say good morning to the folks in the chat room. We have John, good morning to you, Vicky, and Peter in the chat room. We have others viewing. Don't be afraid to get in the chat room. We take no points off here for spelling. So, just type away in there, say good morning to everybody. and we'd love to have you in the chat room. But we're going to back up a little bit down. We're going to talk about why today of all days, are we talking about manual then? If the camera will do all this great stuff for us, why are we worried about manual control? Well, the camera has one job. The camera's main job is to always get perfect exposure to for whatever you're setting the camera for. So if we're going into shutter priority mode, and you take your shutter speed and you run it up to, I don't know, let's say 800, and you take a shot. Well, the aperture and the ISO settings, well, not even really the ISO, let's just go aperture settings, is being controlled by the camera to get the best possible exposure that camera can take. But on manual mode, when you can be more creative, because we can take the shutter speed, we can run it up, and we can run the aperture speed up too if we want. And, you have more control over the camera that way, and the lighting and the exposure, because maybe you don't always want a perfect exposure. You may want it to be a little darker. As we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be working with controlling the ambient light with our camera. Or you may want it to be, a little lighter. Maybe you're doing some high key shooting, and the camera's saying, wait, that's not a great exposure. Hold on, we got to get a good exposure here. But you're saying, no, let's push this camera in another direction, and we're going to tell this camera that we are going to take a high key shot. So it's going to be very bright. And I'll try to take some of those for you today too, so we'll see how that works out. Today is one of those scary days for me, because whenever we start shooting live, many things can go wrong. Now, if you're listening to the audio podcast, you're probably wanting to watch the YouTube video. The audio podcast is great, though, because you are picking up key elements as I talk, and I will talk you through this the best I can and tell you each step of the way what we are doing and how it's affecting the pictures, and we're going to be looking into that. Now, if you have one of these little gizmos, we looked at this before, and in today's world, I guess this one's starting to get old. It's still very relevant. It still works, and we are holding up and talking about the Sekonic. It's the L358 light meter. If you have one of these babies, these are actually superb. I used to watch another photography show, years ago, and the guy always carried his light meter in his back pocket. He always pulled out, he always took a light meter reading, and he got perfect exposures. But today we're going to be playing with our exposure setting. So what the light meter allows me to do, it allows me to get the reading to get my camera set at a perfect exposure setting to start, because I want to start somewhere. Today we are going to be shooting in my little makeshift studio here. Don't mind the background, because I just set this up this morning, and I didn't put a backdrop or anything. We're just going to shoot, and the reason is because I'm going to show you some lighting techniques you can use in your house without buying any lights. A lot of people kind of get, when you introduce anything into your photography, it gets more complicated. I understand that. And it gets more challenging because you're introducing something else into your photograph that you didn't have before. Today, folks, is going to be as stripped down, as bare bones as possible. We are going to use ambient light. Oh, wait. I didn't even tell you what ambient light was yet, did I? Okay, let's back up a little bit. So ambient light is any light that we have available to us. A lot of people say, no, Jack, ambient light is sunlight. No, that's natural lighting outside is the sun. We call that natural lighting. Ambient light can be a lamp in your living room. As you'll see today, we are using an overhead light in my ceiling. I just have it turned on. And we're also going to be using, for ambient light, we're going to be using some natural lighting, because I happen to have 2 windows in my studio. And if you have windows in your studio and you say, wait, they're not really pointed towards the subject, I don't know how to do that, buy yourself, go out to the dollar store. That's all you need to do. Don't go to B&H Photo or Adorama and buy these things. They do sell them. They're called light deflectors, light reflectors. There's a lot of names for them, and they could be rather expensive. But if you're working in a small studio setting and you have a window and you want to bend the light or control the mood or the shape or the direction of the light, you can simply buy some white foam core board. I picked some up relatively inexpensive. It was maybe, I don't know, it might have been $2 a sheet. So I bought, you know, about 3 or 4 sheets of these things just to have them laying around, and they work really, really well. You can put them in your window if your window's not facing your subject. You can put those things up and just stand them, you know, lean them on something, and it will direct the light to where you want it. Now, will it be as flash? Will it be as flash as a bright? No. Will it be as bright as a flash? No, it won't. It won't be as bright as a flash. But the thing is you can control that light, and you get more and more lighting just by knowing how to set up the camera. So ambient light then is, we talked about that, any lighting that we have in the house or available to us. Now, so we're going to talk about controlling. We talked a little bit about controlling in the home, and I'm going to show you a demonstration here because I was playing around this morning setting up for this this live shoot, and I said, I got blinds on my windows. Now you may have curtains, and we've done this before when I've shot weddings. We were in, let's say, where the bride's getting ready in a back room in a church, and there happened to be a window. Well, they didn't have blind. I like blinds because I can control the light better. But they had curtains. And curtains are fine also. So we opened up one side of the curtains. We just pulled the curtains to the left or to the right. And we allowed enough of the light to come in that we wanted to come in. Now you can buy yourself a reflector. Many outdoor photographers own a reflector. And I got mine relatively cheaply. I usually buy them off of eBay. You know, the round ones. You've probably seen it on the show before. We've used it many a times. And that actual reflector, you know, you can get a pretty good size one for, well, maybe $20 with shipping, right? They're nice because they fold up in a little case, and you can throw those in your, you know, in your car when you go out to do your photo shoot, and then you'll have it. I always take the reflector with me. But if I'm shaping light in the house, foam core board is where it's at. So let's talk a little bit about the camera then. If we don't have a light meter, how would we use the camera in manual mode? Wow, Jack, that's pretty hard, right? Because how would we do that? Well, it's pretty simplistic. You will take your camera. Hopefully I don't pull up my tethering cable here. You will take your camera, and when you look through your camera in manual mode, there'll be a bar graph in your camera. Get your camera out right now, pick it up, turn it on, and look through the center of it. When you look through there, sometimes they're displayed on the back. There's a bar graph. What you want to do first of all, today since we're shooting in a house, I'm going to be shooting at an ISO of 1000. And I normally recommend when you're shooting in a house, shoot anything over 800 is fine. So I set my ISO first. And then controlling my aperture, I take my aperture to the widest setting I can get. This lens happens to be my f1.8 lens. It's a fixed 50 millimeter lens I'll be shooting with today. So I have it set at 1.8 on my f-stop. What I do then is just keep rolling your control dial. This happens to be a Nikon, but Canons are much the same way. Roll your control dial to the left and right until that bar graph gets over and is set into the 0 mark. When it's set to dead 0, then you are ready to go. That is when you have the perfect exposure. Once you get that perfect exposure, take a shot to see what the perfect exposed shot looks like. Then what you're going to do is you're going to start working your way up and down, and we're going to control the ambient light only with the shutter speed. Now here is a couple clues for you. If you're writing this down, obviously if you're riding in a car, don't write this down. But if you're sitting at home and you're taking some notes, remember that a slow shutter speed, so if you slow the shutter speed down, it's going to be much, much brighter. If you raise the shutter speed and you're getting that shutter speed up higher, we're letting in less light. The reason for that is, folks, let me put this camera down for a second here so I can kind of illustrate this. When you take your shutter and that shutter opens, right? So it opens up and down. If we have the shutter and we slow it down, so it goes chick, and it stays open chick, longer. When it's open, chick, up, Light's coming in, light's not coming in, right? So it's exposing the picture. Up, exposure, down, no exposure. Now, when you have a faster shutter speed, it's going to let in less light because it's open for a smaller amount of time. Watch this one. Right? So it's very, very fast. It's only letting in a small amount of light. And that's how you're controlling your ambient light with your shutter speed. So now when you're outside, you said, oh, whoa, Jack, wait. Okay, so I'm going to set my exposure to be 0, dead on. Take a picture, look at it, and be like, yep, that's a perfect exposed shot. And now it's a real bright sunny day. The exposure looks okay, but I want to start knocking that sun down a little bit. So just start getting your shutter speed to be faster. And we're going to illustrate that this morning here and be able to show you a little bit of this. So we will get underway here. So I'm going to get rid of some screens here and get ready for my live shooting. My live shooting this morning is going to be with my old friend, the gnome. If you watched many of my YouTube videos, we used to have one female that watched the show a lot. And she would watch the show. And when she first contacted me, she said, boy, Jack, thanks for the YouTube videos. She was actually on the show once. And she taught scrapbooking. But she goes, thanks for the show, Jack. They are wonderful. When I first seen your YouTube videos, I thought it was something about gardening. Because I always get this gnome. This gnome I use to be my test subject. I mean, he never says I'm tired. He doesn't take a lunch break. I could take pictures of my gnome all day. Now, is it the perfect thing to learn about taking portraits? No, but it is going to work for us today about lighting. So we are first going to minimize some of these screens out of the way. And I think I'll minimize this screen also. Get that down out of the way. And then what we're going to talk about first is we are going to look at my gnome. Let me see here. Let me get my long shot up. And we'll bring it over here. So this is the little guy here. This is the gnome that you're going to be seeing on your screen here. And right now, you can see behind him, the first thing about learning about ambient light is to learn very simply where the light's falling. If you don't understand where the light's falling at, then you'll never understand how to get the proper lighting. As you can see, there are lights coming more from behind him. There's a window directly behind the gnome. And the light is coming in from behind him through a blind. That blind is closed right now. And I'm going to show you a couple different lighting patterns I can do just by working my blinds. There's also a window to, let me look what side I'm looking. If he's looking at you, it's on his left side. So the side that he has his arm down, there's also a window on that side. So I'm going to stand up from my chair. I don't have a lapel microphone on, so we're going to try to work back and forth with this mic situation. And we're going to look just first about how to control this lighting. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give him some light. Let me get up from the chair. The first thing I'm going to do is give him some light on his left side, just by simply opening this blind. So this blind opens, look and see how much more light is coming in. Okay, so now you can see very plainly, very clearly, that is coming in on his left side, how there's more light coming into him. I just simply opened up my blind. Now, if I want to give him more backlighting, if I want to backlight him some more, I can open up my back blind. Again, I don't have any lights in the room. Well, I do have the overhead light. Let's turn that off. So we turned the overhead light off, and now you can see he's still lit on that left side. That's just simply by using my blinds. We're going to give him some more backlighting. So now we have more backlighting on him. So now he's lit from the side and from the back. So if I wanted to use that light on the left of him as a key light, you can turn your subject more into the light. When I turned him more into the light, you see that the light now is casting more on his face, on the front of him, because I turned him to my key light. So is this easier than using a flash? Probably not, right? Because we can have the subject sit, we can move an umbrella light around them. But if we don't have the money for a flash, we can't afford all that, fancy gear. We can go this route and it works extremely well. I've did this for years and I never had trouble using natural lighting. Natural lighting also allows it to be, now this is different between ambient now, because ambient was the overhead light. The natural lighting is coming from outside in, and it's coming in and it's hitting my subject through my windows. Now, if I didn't have a window, let me look for my phone. I don't have a piece of foam core board out, but you know what foam core is. And I don't see any of it out here. Must have it in my closet here. But foam core is just that. It's just a piece of foam cord, a board. And what it does, I just bought it at a hobby shop or the dollar store. And what it does, it allows you to move that light around a little bit. You could either use a very cheap and expensive stand, or you can just, like I said, prop it up on something. So now what we're going to do is, now that we know we have the light on him, okay, we want to get that perfect exposure. So I'm going to go ahead, take my light meter out here, and you'll see it in this shot in a second, turn it on, and right now I have it set at an ISO 1000. It's set for just natural or ambient lighting, not flash. Get a reading. So the perfect exposure I have on that is ISO of 1000. That's what my camera's set at. And a shutter speed of 160 and an f-stop of 1.8. That tells me that right on the screen here. It's so really nice to see that. Hold on, let me show you. So the readout gives me that camera setting, and I can do this very easily. Where the light meter comes in handy, when I do senior pictures, we don't spend a lot of time figuring out the light. Even if I'm using flash, we just set it up, I take a light reading, and we start shooting right away. It saves me a lot of time. It makes your client a lot happier that that's going on. What we're going to do now is we're going to do some live shooting. We're going to leave our lighting exactly the way it is because I like the way the light's casting on Mr. Gnome over here. And now we're going to start doing some live shooting, and I'm going to show you as we shoot these, the pictures as they come up, and tell you as we're going along how we're changing the camera, not the lighting, to match our pictures. First of all here, get my tethering set back up. And if you've never tethered before, look back at some of my videos. I'll show you the tethering videos. And what those are for, tethering is hooking your camera up directly to the computer so you can shoot right into your computer. Let me bring up this desktop shot and make sure everything looks good. Take that off. And yeah, looks pretty good here. I think. So now we're into the live shooting mode. And remember, I got to change my shutter speed. If you look at the very top of the screen, you'll see my tether settings. I have it at ISO 1000, the f-stop of 1.8, and we're going to change our shutter speed now to match the shutter speed that my light meter told me of 160. I'm done with my light meter at this point. We're going to put it away. And now we're going to begin shooting Mr. Gnome. So there's our first shot. That's our perfectly exposed shot. And that's what my light meter told me. It was a perfectly exposed shot. I'm going to blow it up here for you. So that is Mr. Gnome. That's the natural lighting coming in from the outside. A little bit of backlighting coming in on him for, for the top of his hat and whatnot. Maybe it would be a hair light. You might have to worry about a hair light at some point. So you would use that setting and allow that to be the top of his head, the side, and everything is well exposed. What we're going to do now is we are going to show you, just by simply changing the shutter speed, how I can control that light. So again, if you can see the top of the screen, we're going to take our shutter speed up to 200, and we'll see what change this makes. So there you go. You can see that's a little darker already. And again, we're just changing the shutter speed. So we're at the shutter speed of 200. Now what we're going to do here is we are going to take our shutter speed and we're going to go up to 320. Watch how everything, even the bottom of the stool there, is going to start darkening down a little bit, where that little bit of light's hitting it there. It's a little hot spot. We're going to take a shot with 320. So that's at 320 coming up right there. And again, I didn't change anything. Now you can see the tone and the color. Sometimes when you're shooting and you have that perfect exposure, to me, the color could be blown out. And I know we can saturate it in Lightroom or in Photoshop elements. But, you know, if you're shooting it and you look at this, and sometimes it's hard to see on the back of your camera, but if you're shooting this, you can actually learn how to change the color composition by learning the right exposures. And just because the camera says it has perfect exposure, the cameras are normally right, and then I normally play with them in post-processing. But sometimes you might want to shoot this and learn a little bit about how to knock that ambient light down. Let's say if you're shooting a picture of a family and you're outdoors, or you're shooting some baby pictures outdoors, and you have the baby down and the sunlight seems to be really, really bright coming from the back of the child, or the side, let's say, the left side. And you're seeing a little bit of blown out places. Even though the camera thinks it's a really good exposure, what you want to do there is just start getting the shutter speed up and controlling the light. Again, now we're not worrying about that golden hour, right? That hour before sunrise and the hour before sunset. We can shoot all day long because we know how to control our cameras. Let's go now. We're going to go up to 500 and shoot another one. Okay, here comes the shot at 500. Again, you can see it's darkening down. I didn't change the lighting. The lighting is exactly the same. And when we go back to the live shot, well, you can see the gnome. The gnome's not changing. Look in your bottom right-hand corner of this video, and you'll see there that the gnome has not changed. The lighting is staying exactly the same on that gnome, but the picture itself is changing, right? We're not showing the exact picture as what we're shooting. We're going to get a little bit higher and see what we get. 800. Here is 800. Again, look at the gnome on the bottom of your screen. He's still bright and lit from the sun. The sun is still staying the same as it was. And the gnome is getting much darker. We're going to go now up to 1250. Now we're shooting at 1250 shutter speed, and look how dark we got it. These examples are starting to show you how you can use shutter speed, and then we start talking about using aperture when we're using flash. That's for another day. We're not going to discuss that today. We're just simply talking about how to control your ambient light. A lot of people, and it's funny, I watched a lot of photography shows in the past, and they said, oh, turn out all the lights in the room because we want to take use flash and take a nice picture with the flash. You don't need to do that. The first thing you need to do in your room is you can leave all the lights on, because the camera needs light to focus, people. That's just, the cameras need light to focus. Okay, that's how autofocus works. And I know there's the focus assist light, but I don't really like it. So I like to take it and I'll first adjust my shutter speed to knock out all the ambient light. And then I introduce my flash and I start working my f-stop to control how much flash I'm allowing to be on the subject. So let's say here we want to cut out all the ambient light. Well, let's just simply try to go up to 2000. Again, you see in your bottom right picture there, the picture-in-picture, the light hasn't changed, but we are making the room darker. So you look there. Now there is a little bit of problems here when you're using flash. Let me back up a little bit. Shutter speed of your flash, and usually to knock out your ambient light, I mean, I got a lot of ambient light coming in here. Normally I can knock out most of the ambient lighting without having to take the shutter speed this high. You can also use filters on your camera to knock down some of the light. So those are a couple different possibilities you can use. Well, let's go now. We're going to knock out all the ambient light. I'm going to go to 3,200. Again, that's 3,200, and we'll see where we get. Well, we're a little darker there, but we're not completely dark yet. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go back a little bit. And the reason I believe we're not getting dark yet is I have my ISO set so high. I'm going to take my ISO back down to 400. And then we'll take my shutter speed and we'll set that at 400. Let's see what we get now. Because remember, when you're using flash, your ISO is going to be at 100. Okay, now that's at ISO 400. So now I should be able to get around 1,000 and knock the, well, we'll go around 2,000 and try to knock the light out. So see, you got that there. So if we had this ISO set to 100 now, because remember, ISO is also affecting the amount of light being allowed into the sensor. We're at 100 at 2,000. And there we should be pretty much dark. Yep, pretty much dark. This is when you start introducing your flash. Let's try it at 3,200. So again, you can see how each camera setting can control the other camera settings. Pretty dark there. And again, we didn't change the lighting at all. The lighting is staying exactly the same. There you go. That's pretty much pitch black. So you would be introducing your flash and knocking out your ambient light with your actual shutter speed. So let's go the other way here. We're going to go up. I'm going to turn my ISO back up to 400. And this time we're going to slow the shutter speed down. Because let's say we're shooting some high key. High key means just that. It's very bright, very light. So we start at 125. We're going to go back down to about 60 and see what we get. And again, we're at ISO 400. Now you do have to watch with slow shutter speeds, because what happens is you can actually get to the point where you can't handhold the camera and then you start getting camera shake. Try 30. So I can already hear the shutter getting really slow. That's at 30 right there. So the camera's starting to get a little bit slow there, but you get the general idea. We're operating with the shutter speed more than anything else. Chair back over here. Bring this microphone back down. And we're going to do now here. Try to get readjusted here in the chair. There we go. Hey, we're going to bring this camera back up. I'm back with you guys. I'm going to see if there's any questions in the chat room going on, if there's anything happening. Nope, looks like we're okay. We're going to come back here. And what we're going to do now, just very quickly, is we are going to look at the difference on these shots in our Lightroom. I'll just scroll up to the top here. And as you see, as we were getting lighter and darker through these shots, it's very simple. So this is the first one. These are all ISO 1000. And this was at 50 millimeters, naturally. And 1 1/60th was supposed to be our perfect exposure. That was supposed to be our perfect exposure. Now, as we go to the right here, we're going to see as I raise the shutter speed, we started to get darker and darker. Another one. And it just starts getting darker just simply by using the shutter speed of my camera. I didn't change anything else. We did go, oh, that's the camera up there. So that is, let's see here. There we go. So that is ISO 100 at 1/500th of shutter speed. There's 1/800. There is 1250. Again, the ISO you can see is staying the same. There is 2000, getting darker. 3200 is even darker yet. And then this is when I changed the ISO to 400, and this is 400th of a second. 2000ths of a second. This is ISO 100 at 2000. ISO 100 at 3200. And ISO 100 at 4,000ths of a second. So you can see here where as you're going through these, we were able to black out all of our lighting, natural lighting, ambient lighting, or whatever else. These are high key shots. This is when you start getting into the lower settings, the lower shutter speed. To slow the shutter down. Remember, if we leave the shutter open longer, we're letting in more lighting. So that's how that works. Right there. There you have it. All right, let's go back here to this camera. All right, see if there's any questions in the chat room. Nothing to be seen there this morning. Okay, so we looked at the different shots. We looked at how the shutter speed controls ambient lighting. We talked about what ambient lighting was as opposed to what natural lighting is. We have to know the difference between those two. That's very important. So hopefully today you learned something about your camera. You picked up some good tips and tricks on how to use your camera a little better. The big thing is don't be afraid to use manual settings on your camera. I was for years. I mean, I would stay with I always shot program mode, which is automatic mode without the flash popping up. But now, I do shoot a lot on shutter priority and aperture priority mode just because I let the camera do some exposing for me. But anytime I want to be creative and I want to do some creative exposures, then I set the camera on manual and then I tell the camera what it's going to do. And don't worry, folks, you can use chimping. Oh, wait, chimping, you don't know what that is? Chimping is when we look at the back of the screen of the camera. You flip it up and look. So you can use chimping to kind of get an idea. But what's even easier is turn your cameras on histogram mode. Look at the histogram. If it's leaning towards the left, it's getting over or underexposed. If it's leaning towards the right, it's getting overexposed. So the histogram can tell you a lot of information also. If not, you can always pick up a light meter. I suggest at this point go to eBay. It doesn't have to be a light meter of this caliber. It could be lower price light meters. You can find them normally around $100, roughly around there starting out. This one I think still sells for maybe $250 or so, maybe $300. And then if you're really into light meters, they have one now with a touch screen that looks like an iPhone or a smartphone, and you touch it, which I don't need all those bells and whistles. This does what I need it to do. It definitely helps out, but you definitely don't need it. You can use the built-in light meter in the camera. So it's really up to you guys what gear you want to buy. I tend to buy a lot of different gear. And I try not to buy the gear until I'm kind of ready to use it. I used a built-in light meter for years and learned how to properly use that. And then I can use this light meter now just to make things quicker. Well, friends, I want to thank you very much for tuning into this show. If you're downloading this from iTunes, again, please watch the video on YouTube. I think you'll get more out of it, especially today's show with a live shoot. You'll learn a lot more out of it. And those YouTube videos at 42 Technoman. I do still have the DVD collections available. It's Photoshop Elements if you're looking for that. And you can find that at jackstechcorner.com. You can pick up a DVD. I have them right here ready to go. So let's see here. You can probably see this on camera. Hold this up. This is the DVD. You can see where they're well crafted, well made. People give me a lot of credit on the time I put on those DVDs. Or if you have a good internet connection, just go to jtclearning.com where you can sign up for Photoshop Elements 12. And just click on courses and you'll see it in there. Just click on it. You can register, sign up. Please do not sign up for jtclearning.com if you're not going to take a course. It's a paid learning site. So if you sign up and you're not going to take it, it kind of just doesn't make sense to even waste your time doing so. If you do sign up, though, at jtclearning.com, you can use JTC5, JTC the number 5, and that will give you $5 off the course. Folks, I want to thank you so much for joining me here each and every week. I do appreciate you being here, and I hope you come back next Sunday for another The Photography Guy. Until then, keep both shutters clicking, keep your editors editing, and I'll see you back there then. So long for now. Thanks for tuning in to The Photography Guy. I am a photography guy, and I'll be here once again next time for more photography tips and tricks. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the show and enjoy the music.